Russia's war in Ukraine entered the third week on Thursday with none of its key objectives reached despite thousands of people killed, more than 2 million made refugees, and thousands forced to cower in besieged cities under relentless bombardment. Ukrainian forces, including citizen soldiers who only last month never dreamed of firing a weapon in anger, were holding out in Kiev and other front lines, while Russian troops, tanks and artillery made slow progress from the north, south and east. Moscow's stated objectives of crushing the Ukrainian military and ousting the pro-West elected government of President Volodymyr Zelensky remained out of reach, with Zelensky unshaken and lethal Western military aid pouring across the Polish and Romanian borders. Western-led sanctions designed to cut the Russian economy and government from international financial markets were beginning to bite, with the Russian share market and ruble plunging and ordinary Russians rushing to hoard cash. Zelensky accused Russia of carrying out genocide after Ukrainian officials said Russian aircraft bombed a children's hospital on Wednesday, burying patients in rubble despite a ceasefire deal for people to flee the besieged city of Mariupol. The attack, which authorities said injured women in labor and left children in the wreckage, underscored U.S. warnings that the biggest assault on a European state since 1945 could become increasingly attritional after Russia's early failures. The White House condemned the hospital bombing as a barbaric use of military force to go after innocent civilians. Russia had earlier pledged to halt firing so at least some trapped civilians could escape the port city, where hundreds of thousands have been sheltering without water or power for more than a week. Both sides blamed the other for the failure of the evacuation. Zelensky repeated his call for the West to tighten sanctions on Russia so that they sit down at the negotiating table and end this brutal war. The bombing of the children's hospital, he said, was proof that a genocide of Ukrainians is taking place. The Donetsk region's governor said 17 people were wounded in the attack. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov, asked by Reuters for comment, said Russian forces do not fire on civilian targets. Russia calls its incursion a special operation to disarm its neighbor and dislodge leaders it calls neo-Nazis. Ukraine's foreign ministry posted video footage of what it said was the hospital, showing holes where windows should have been in a 3-story building. Huge piles of smoldering rubble littered the scene. The UN human rights body said it was verifying the number of casualties at Mariupol. The incident adds to our deep concerns about indiscriminate use of weapons in populated areas, it added through a spokesperson. Among more than 2 million total refugees from Ukraine, the United Nations Children's Fund UNICEF said on Wednesday that more than 1 million children have fled the country since the invasion started on Feb 24. At least 37 had been killed and 50 injured, it said. The International Committee of the Red Cross said houses had been destroyed all across Ukraine. Hundreds of thousands of people have no food, no water, no heat, no electricity and no medical care, it said. Foreign ministers from Russia and Ukraine will meet in Turkey on Thursday in the first high-level talks between the two countries since Moscow invaded its neighbor, with Ankara hoping they could mark a turning point in the raging conflict. Ukraine is seeking a ceasefire, liberation of its territories, and to resolve all humanitarian issues, Kuleba said. Moscow demands that Kiev take a neutral position and drop aspirations of joining the NATO alliance. Zelensky told Vice in an interview on Wednesday that he was confident Putin would at some stage agree to talks. I think he will. I think he sees that we are strong. He will. We need some time, he said. Russia has been hit by Western sanctions and the withdrawals of foreign firms, the latest including Nestle, cigarette maker Philip Morris and Sony. The U.S. House of Representatives on Wednesday voted to rush $13.6 billion in aid to Ukraine, sending the legislation to the Senate. A majority of the U.S. House of Representatives also voted to impose a ban on imports of Russian oil and other energy products in retaliation for Moscow's ongoing attack on Ukraine. The World Bank's chief economist said Moscow was edging close to defaulting on its debt,